Welcome to When We're Not Hustling, a podcast where sex workers talk about everything but. I'm your host, Jessie Sage.
Put away the lingerie. I want to know you. Tell me more. I don't care about the news. I'd rather hear about you and see the world from your point of view. The coffee's already made, so I park the sheets, just pull up a chair and tell me more.
When We're Not Hustling is a weekly podcast that explores the lives and identities of sex workers outside of our work personas, our personal philosophies, ambitions, families, relationships, passions, spirituality, and so much more. We talk about our lives beyond the job, asking, what does the flexibility of sex work allow us to do, and who does it allow us to be? On this show, we learn who sex workers are outside of the work we're known for. When We're Not Hustling is an exploration of the people behind the fantasies. I'm very excited to announce that When We're Not Hustling is partnering with Black Venom Digital, a new web design and creative services agency for adult creators, entertainers, and entrepreneurs who need a professional, transparent partner to help grow their brands. To celebrate the birth of the agency and our partnership, we are giving away a free website to a lucky adult industry professional. That's right, free. The contest will run from August 26th to September 16th. To enter to win a custom-made website, follow Black Venom Digital on Insta and X. That's at BLKVNM Digital on Instagram and X, as well as Not Hustling Pod. Fill out the entry form at blackvenomdigital.com/raffle, which will also be linked in the show notes, and engage with us on socials up until September 16th when we pick and announce a winner. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to another episode of When We're Not Hustling. This is your host, Jessie Sage. Happy Labor Day. Today is Labor Day, and we are going to be doing a bit of escapism, which is that we're going to be talking to Adrie Rose, a good friend of mine and a fellow Pittsburgh writer slash sex worker slash creative. And we're going to be talking about romance novels. She hosts a podcast called Pages and Prejudice, where her and a friend talk about romance novels and the genre. And I think it will be fun to do a little bit of that today on the podcast. Also, since it's the beginning of the month, I wanted to give you kind of an overview of what we are doing this month. The first episode today, we have Adrie Rose on. Next week, we will have Amber DeLise, who is a Colorado-based companion, and we're going to be talking to her about creating immersive theater for clients outside of the sex work industry. After that, we have on Dominique Riston, who is a trans porn performer, and she is going to be pushing back against the premise of the show and talking to us about why she does not want to tell clients and fans what she does when she's not working. And I'm always, as you know, up for a little pushback. So that should be fun. The fourth week of the month, we are going to have Courtney Trouble on. Courtney Trouble is, of course, a queer porn performer who created Nofo. And they're going to be talking to us about hosting queer pride parties. So that should be fun too. So there's actually a lot of fun stuff coming up this month. And then lastly, the last week of the month, we're going to be talking to Stephanie Parent, who is a writer and dominatrix, and she will be talking to us about her new book, which is a horror novel set in a LA dungeon. So that is also great. So I have an entire month worth of really fantastic interviews and conversations with sex workers that I have a ton of respect for coming up this month. And I'm excited for that. Also, because it's a new month, we are going to be switching our color and also our after party host. And thank you so much for Ashley. Last month was amazing to have Ashley join us for the after parties. This month, we are bringing on a previous guest. We're bringing on Melody Garcia. Melody Garcia, of course, is from the New Moon Network and also operates Orange Cap Consulting. We talked to Melody at the end of last season about philanthropy for sex workers, and we are going to have her on to chat about all 5 of these episodes this season, or not this season, but this month. So that should be really fun. Let me see. Do we have any? So, just as a reminder, the after parties, this show comes out on Mondays. On Wednesdays, the after parties come out. This entire month on Wednesday, the after party is going to be me, my producer, Emily Foster, and Melody Garcia. So we'll be talking about all 5 of these episodes. You can catch that on Wednesday. The difference between that podcast and this podcast and the after party is that the after party also comes in video. If you want to watch it, you can watch it on YouTube, and that's youtube.com/sapiotextual. Also, you can visit us on Patreon, same at patreon.com/sapiotextual with a T. That's not it for announcements. I want to remind you, I brought this up before, that if you're a Pittsburgh-based person, we are going to be having a live event, and I don't have the date set yet for that, but I will let you know when I do. We're going to be having a live event at a local bookstore, Stay Gold Books in Regent Square, and Adrie Rose is actually going to be Adrie Rose is actually going to be joining us, and on the panel there, Emily is going to be hosting it. I am going to be on the panel along with Molly Simmons, who is the co-founder of Working Girls Press, and we are going to be doing a book launch that's going to double as a live episode of or in-person episode, I should say. It will be edited. Of When We're Not Hustling. So that's a really fun collaboration between Working Girls Press, Stay Gold Books. Swap Pittsburgh is going to be helping us out with that as well. And then also this podcast. So we're looking forward to that. I think that's enough of the announcements. I want to go ahead and introduce Adrie and then get into the conversation about romance novels. So Adrie Rose is a Jamaican-American freelance writer and photographer from Pittsburgh. She lives in Pittsburgh now. She writes primarily about sex work, and how they intersect with tech and culture. Adrie also co-hosts a Pages and Prejudice podcast with Stitch. Her hobbies include being just like other girls, drinking craft beer, and reading romance novels with questionable love interests. In her free time, she works with returning citizens on their restorative justice journeys. As a writer, Adrie has bylines in publications including NBC Think, Prism, Daily Dot, Wear Your Voice, Observer, and Autostraddle. Additionally, her photography has been seen in Sweet July. As a photographer, she's experienced working with all skin tones and numerous industries, including adult film actors, stage performers, nonprofits, families, and students. So let's go ahead and turn to our interview with Adrie Rose. Hi, Adrie. It is fun to talk to you again.
Hi, Jessie. It has been forever since we've had a conversation.
You have been on all my podcasts. You were on Peep Show a long time ago, and you were on The Horizon. Yeah, now you're back for this one.
Yay. I mean, I'm super excited. I feel like we have really good conversations.
We do. And for the people who are less familiar with you, you are also a Pittsburgh babe.
I am. I have been here for 7 years. That'll be 7 years next month, August.
Wow. So you're not even really new to Pittsburgh anymore.
Not anymore. Sometimes it feels a little new, but that is more because I am from the South, and Pittsburgh is not the South.
No, it's not.
Also not the East Coast or the Midwest, but like a secret third thing.
We're the Paris of Appalachia. That's what I've heard. It's what I've heard. I don't know that.
I've also heard that though.
Or Appalachia. I'm not sure how you're.
I think it's Appalachia.
Yeah,
but I'm also nobody come fight me because I'm a guest in your region. Okay.
Yeah. So you're from Miami.
I am from Miami,
Yeah.
the county of Dade.
I was just in the South. I was in Dallas.
You know what? I have actually never been to Texas.
Okay.
Until May, Pittsburgh was the furthest west that I had ever been.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, and so as part of my day job, which I will not be discussing because I value my sanity,
Okay.
I had to go to Detroit, and so that was my first time being in the Midwest.
I've never been to Detroit. What's Detroit like?
I liked it. It was very strange being able to look across the river and seeing Canada.
Yeah.
I think if you're not expecting it, like it doesn't quite register in your brain, you are literally looking at Canada.
So the lake is that short there? Short? I don't know how you would say.
Well, so if I remember correctly, and again, nobody come jump me. I'm not from the Midwest. All right. If I remember correctly, there is a little river that runs through downtown Detroit. Okay. And if you cross the bridge, you are in Canada.
What city is that? It's across from?
London, I think, Ontario. I could be wrong.
Huh. Okay. So we spend some time, me and my family spend some time up in on Lake Erie in New York. And if it's very, very, very clear, see across, but usually you can't. Usually it just looks like you're looking at the ocean that just goes on and on and on.
Yeah. Okay. I am used to the ocean.
Yeah.
No one explained to me how big the Great Lakes are, though.
The Great Lakes are so big.
They're huge.
It seems like you are looking at an ocean, except it's freshwater.
But they have their own tides.
Yeah.
And people tell you, be careful, look for riptides. I'm like, those are ocean words. Those are not lake words.
Lakes are supposed to be still, but no, you can, they aren't actually. The Great Lakes are like their own, they're not oceans.
It's like its own ecosystem. I don't know. It makes me very uncomfortable. I love to swim. I was actually talking with someone about this.
What makes you uncomfortable?
I love to swim, but large bodies of open water make me deeply uncomfortable in the same way that open space makes me uncomfortable. I have no idea what's going on out there, and I don't like it.
Do you like pools better?
I love pools. One, because I can see the bottom, and two, because I can see to the other side.
So me and PJ got married up at their aunt's property on Lake Erie in New York. And the most romantic night I've ever had was our wedding night, where us and 4 or 5 of our super close friends went swimming in the lake at night, and it was lit by the moon. And then PJ's cousin put a bunch of candles on the beach, and it was so fun. Immediately no. Immediately no. But it was dark. We were swimming in the lake in the dark under the moon.
It's even worse. I can't.
No, okay, so you wouldn't have made it out there. Okay.
Listen, we went to Jamaica in November to see family, and I made it just to where the water meets the beach. And they were like, "You're not going to get in? You're not going to swim?" No. Actually, I'm not. No, I'm going to stay right here.
So I grew up in San Diego, and I love the beach. I love going in the water because I grew up around it. But I understand being not wanting to not know what's in there. And I get kind of creeped out if there's too much algae in the lake, or if there's you can't see a lot. I'll get a little creeped out sometimes.
I don't like being taken by surprise.
Yeah.
And especially in the South, in the South Atlantic, which surrounds Florida, the seaweed is bonkers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm afraid of down there is the jellyfish. There's so many freaking jellyfish.
And that's a valid fear.
Yeah.
Because they hide. You don't know that you've stepped on one until you've stepped on one. And by that point, it's too late.
Yeah, see, that's what I don't like. In the Pacific, I think it might be too cold. I don't know. There's not jellyfish there. Or they don't take over in the way that they do in the Atlantic.
Yeah, the South Atlantic, especially right now, is a lot warmer than it should be. And so there's a lot of invasive species. One in particular is the lionfish, which don't typically come up into the shallows, but there's still a chance. And I think that freaks me out because they look very pretty, but they're not very friendly fish.
Okay.
Some people eat them. I can't wrap my brain around it. They're such freaky looking fish.
I don't even know what they are.
They are, I would say they're mid-sized to larger fish, and they're very pretty. They have these red and white stripes, and they call them lionfish because they have all of these red and white spikes all around them. But they are invasive, and they have no natural predators, and so they've just kind of taken over the reefs in South Florida.
Right.
And so there's actually a nonprofit called the Lionfish Extermination Corporation.
Oh my gosh, what a name.
In their free time, they just go around catching and killing lionfish, and then they sell them to restaurants in South Florida.
Oh, do people eat them?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
I've been told they taste just like any other flaky whitefish, but like they're so freaky looking. I cannot imagine seeing one on my plate. I think I would lose my mind.
Yeah. Okay. So, as much as I like talking about fish, I had you on to talk about writing and podcasting, and I heard you have an announcement. So let's hear it.
Okay. Worldwide announcement. But I am writing/editing a book through Working Girls Press.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
So tell us about the book.
I don't want to say too much because I don't want anyone to steal my idea and then I have to go beat them up. But, ideally 10 to 12 people will contribute alongside myself. And the way I envision it is very much a conversation between writers. I think during the initial process, they asked, do you want it to be more academic? Because I am a dropout grad student.
Me too. We share that. We know a lot of the same people.
Oh my God, we do. But I don't want it to be super academic. I don't want it to be super formal. I love bell hooks. It's very important to me to write something accessible.
Yeah.
It's very important to me to make this for the community. This is very much not a book for the larger public. It's for the people that get it.
Yeah.
And so ideally it will look like just a lot of writers in conversation with each other on topics related to sex work, labor, and capitalism.
That's amazing. I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Do you think that everybody who's been writing about sex work and hanging around sex work Twitter for as long as you and I have knows what the criticisms of that will be, which is, that we don't want to feed the antis, right? How do you think you're going to respond to that?
At the risk of repeating my own tweets, I'm not responsible. None of us are responsible for misogyny and how other people feel about sex work. And I think that's something that took me a really long time to come to terms with. I don't call myself a journalist because I don't write from an objective point of view. I don't want to. I'm writing about my experiences in the industry and occasionally other people's experiences. And so first and foremost, I want my community to resonate with the book and what I'm writing more broadly.
Yeah.
So if other people have strong feelings about it, they're welcome to share it, but I'm not obligated to internalize any of that. This book is not for you. I want you to buy it. I want you to read it. But this book is my gift to a community that has been there for me for over a decade.
Yeah, I love that response, actually. And I feel like the longer that I've written, the more I've come to that, because there was a time, especially earlier in my career as a writer in particular, but I've always my public writing and sex work have always coincided, but particularly in the context of being a writer, where I felt responsible to respond to people's criticisms of what I said or my work. And then at some point, I think I heard another writer say that the great thing about writing is because you don't actually have to babysit your work. You could just put it
out there.
Let it go. And it took me a while to internalize that too, but it was really freeing when I was like, I can speak my truth and I don't have to respond to every person who only half read in bad faith what I said.
Right.
I'm not responsible for their interpretations of me.
People don't want to read 140 or 280 characters, so I don't expect them to read all 30,000+ words.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or even to engage with it, honestly. But as long as the people who it's for are happy with it, I think I'll be okay.
Yeah. I love that. And just like I even like the discussion of thinking about like as a writer, as a public figure, as a person, even with just an active X account, like I hate that, but I
call it shitter.
That. Like separating your, like, I think it's important to think about how we separate ourselves from like what people project onto us, which is a
Absolutely.
lot. Yeah.
Well, and I was always very clear that I didn't want to do client-facing accounts because absolutely nothing that I do is for clients. Thank you for keeping a roof over my head. However, everything that I do is for the girls, the gays, and the days.
Yeah.
Nothing I have ever done is for clients.
So here's a question that I have for you, because I know you, like, do your clients know you under a different name, or do they like follow your Twitter? Like, how do they respond?
I mean, they might. In the last few years, I've become very lax about separating identities. One, because I'm old and tired.
Yeah.
And two, because I'm much less active than I used to be. So it's very possible I can think of one that we both know who is absolutely aware of my online identity. But for the most part, I mean, I have a separate identity when I am working. I don't actively try to intermingle any of my identities online, but it wouldn't be difficult for a client to find me online.
Yeah, I was just curious how you like manage your Twitter and your identities, but I do the exact same thing, which is that like everybody, like I have my advertising account, but I like even just started putting on it. Actually, as I did this when I saw that Molly Simmons did it, because I was like, oh, she's doing this. We're like on her sex work account. She just said the alter ego of Molly Simmons. And I was like, oh, right. You get more business like that. And so I just like kind of collapsed everything and did the same thing. But there is consequences to that, because I do have like clients who are like, oh, you tweeted this thing and it must be about me. And they get all in their feels about it. And I'm like, this is not about you.
So it helps definitely that I don't have client-facing accounts. It doesn't stop people from being like, oh, I found your account. Well, no, you didn't. You found someone who is pretending to be me, because I don't have client-facing accounts. I feel like I've always been very open about that. But I also just recently legally changed my name. So that's like another added layer of protection for a completely different reason. But it does help.
Yeah. So I'm excited about this book that you're doing. I think this is going to be really cool. You also host a podcast. Can you tell me about that?
I sure can. So it has absolutely nothing to do with the industry at all.
This show is not supposed to be about the industry.
I know.
It keeps creeping in because it's who we are. I don't know.
It's taken over my life at this point. But yeah, so my friend Stitch is a media critic. They and I got together late last year, and we were talking about our interactions online, kind of with fandom and racism and misogyny more broadly. And we are both really big fans of romance, be it literature or other media. And so I think it was on Blue Sky. I was like, next year, I really want to start a podcast all about romance literature. Does anyone want to do it with me? And Stitch was like, yes, absolutely. Are you kidding me? And so we started a podcast called Pages and Prejudice.
That's That's a cool name.
I thought so.
Yeah.
And every episode we talk about, well, discourse because we're both nerds. But maybe a trend or a trope or like something that's happening in romance literature or romance media more broadly. So our most recent episode that came out yesterday, that was all about the rom-com.
Oh, okay.
Because they were watching something with Glenn Powell in it. I have no idea what it was. I don't watch a lot of new movies, but
I don't either.
We spent
I'm a big nerd. I don't know what's happening in pop culture, but yeah,
not at all.
I go to the grocery store and I'm looking at the tabloids and I'm like, I don't know who any of these people are. Like, I've totally lost touch.
No, hard same, which is kind of funny because I now co-host a pop culture podcast, but it's my special interest. So different. But yeah, every week we do something a little bit different. We've done an episode on representations of sex work, of course, but we've also done episodes on the romance writers of America.
Who are the great romance writers of America? Like, who would you...
The great ones?
Yeah.
I mean...
Your favorite ones. Who are your favorite romance American writers?
Well, okay, those are two completely different questions. Right. My favorite romance author is C.M. Costa, who only writes monster romance, which says something about me personally. But
are you into Bad Dragon?
I mean, I have one.
Listeners can't see Adrie's face.
I mean, it's absurd. I don't think I could ever get a Bad Dragon anything inside of me, but I do own one.
So I did a couple of duos with Faye Holloway in Ohio, and she brought a suitcase full of that. I was like, oh.
That's commitment.
Wow.
I have a friend who rented an Airbnb and they left, not to tour or anything, but they left their Bad Dragon behind. And they were like, do I reach out to the host? But it didn't matter because the host reached out to them and was like, what the fuck is this?
Okay, so I don't think there's people who listen to this podcast who don't know what we're talking about. But if you don't, they're enormous dragon / tentacle dildos. Silicone, right?
Enormous is the operative word here. They are, even the small ones are absurd.
So they're monster toys. So tell me what a story of a monster romance is. I don't think I've never read one.
Okay, so one of my favorite ones, again by C.M. Costa, it is Violet, who is a late 20s millennial. She just finished her master's degree. She's living in the city. She's struggling to pay her rent. And she's like, if I don't figure this out, I'm going to have to move back home with my parents, which is a super millennial struggle. I feel like everyone can relate to that.
Yeah.
And so she ends up getting a job at a pharmaceutical facility called Morning Glory Milking Farm.
Milking for okay, keep going.
And in this facility, they give hand jobs to minotaurs because they use minotaur cum in their version of Viagra.
Okay, all right.
And she ends up falling in love. She ends up falling in love with a client. And one of the reasons I really like that book, there's a whole through line in it where Violet really struggles with, is this sex work? And if it is, am I comfortable with being a sex worker? And she comes to a realization where she's like, no, I wouldn't consider this sex work because like it's all very clinical. It's in a pharmaceutical facility. Like I don't have to advertise. I go home at the end of the day and I leave all of my work at work. But I appreciate
giving hand jobs for a shift, 8 hours.
I think I would lose my mind.
I would too. It's the most boring possible.
Well, and so the way that it's set up, like,
I mean, it can be fun for a few minutes.
Sure. Like
8 hours? No.
like as a fantasy thing, I feel like sure it could be fun, but the way it's described is you have the tech on the bottom, like downstairs, and the Minotaur he comes in upstairs and he puts his dick through a hole.
Oh, it's like a glory hole hand job.
Yeah. And then she jerks him off and then he leaves. There's no other interaction whatsoever unless they want to talk to each other. To me, I like that takes all the dubious fun out of it.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a funny story. So
Okay.
I had a client one time, only seen him one time. He booked a 3-hour session. When I got there, I know 3 hours is like the worst time. Like, because at least at 4 hours, they like take you out to dinner and stuff. But 3 hours is just like 3 hours. He wanted to edge
the entire time,
hand job edge the entire time. And then, okay, listen, this is the worst part of the story. So I'm doing like, I don't know if you remember, like when I was young, it reminded me of when I was young and I worked like retail or other boring jobs where I would play like mind games in my head to like count down the time. Like it's going to be done. And I was doing that. There was like a clock that I was like watching because there was nothing for me to do. I'm just like endlessly doing this. And I saw this clock and I was listening to the music and I was like, okay, so I'm just going to like, I have 15 minutes left of this session. In 5 minutes, I'm going to be like, okay, we got to wrap up. I got to like wash my hands. We're going to go. I'm like, I can get through 5 more minutes. And then at the end of that 5 minutes, I do the, okay, blah, 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 blah. And then he says, oh, that clock is 20 minutes ahead.
I would lose my mind.
At that point, I thought I was going to die or kill him. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Why would you say that?
Why is it like that? Like, I thought that was like the worst.
Is that a kink for you? Oh my God, no, I would lose my mind.
Trying to torture me? Is this a torture me session? I think so.
I would have lost my mind.
Anyways, okay. Yeah. So that's my closest experience to what you're talking about in this place. And it felt like almost the same.
I can't imagine doing it for 8 hours. Even overnights are difficult for me.
When We're Not Hustling is brought to you by Assembly 4. Assembly 4 is a collective of sex workers and technologists working to bring the overall cost of sex work down through their advertising platform, Tryst.link. They also educate clients through the Good Client Guide and provide resources and articles written by and for sex workers. Assembly 4 caters to all genders and demographics and raises funds to fight for sex worker rights and against exploitation in the sex industry. Learn more at assembly4.com. ASSEMBLYFOUR.com. Thank you for listening to When We're Not Hustling. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Doing so will help other people find us. And if you're a sex worker who wants to come on the show and talk about your life outside of work, we would love to have you. Please send an email with more information to nothustlingpod@proton.me. A lot of the monster romance I read, I think, has led me to discover some things about myself. I always knew that I was asexual, but I think reading monster romance really solidified it for me. I don't read a lot of contemporary romance. And so our most recent episode... How do you connect the monster romance to your asexuality? I just am not... And maybe it's less that I am deeply asexual and more that I just don't see myself in a relationship with a cis man. Mm-hmm. But I just find it very difficult to be attracted to the men in these stories. Book talk, bookstagram, whatever. There's a very specific characterization, I think, that is very attractive to a lot of the people that read. And a lot of that is because most of the people creating that content are white women in their 20s. Mm-hmm. But the tall, dark, handsome, the slightly feral male lead, none of those things are attractive to me. Mm-hmm. I think reading monster romance helped me give words or put words to it, be able to explain it a little bit better. Oh, interesting.
I'm interested in the fantasy elements of it, less so in the this could be your man. Well, it couldn't, and I'm okay with that.
That's so interesting. Yeah. Okay, so that was the answer to what's your favorite. Who do you think like the renowned ones are?
I have two answers. I think Anne Rice, for all of the controversy that surrounds her, just laid the groundwork for erotic romance specifically. Even though her books, she swore up and down until the day that she died that her books were not erotic. But if you've ever read the Vampire Chronicles books, those are the horniest books I have ever laid my hands on. There's a reason people kept writing fanfic.
That.
It's like deeply delusional woman, but there's a reason people kept writing fanfic, even though she was threatening to sue them for it.
Really? She did?
Oh yeah. At one point it got so bad that fanfic.net actually took the entire Vampire Chronicles category off of their website because she kept threatening to sue them for hosting it.
But why? Based on what? Like, it's not as if fanfic is like, it's in addition to, it's not even pretending to be her.
So it's funny, Stitch and I, we actually did an episode on fanfic and the fanfic to traditional publishing pipeline, but we talked a lot about Anne Rice and the difference between derivative works and wholly original works. But in all of the interviews that she gave, Anne Rice was just deeply attached to her characters. And she felt that people writing them in sexual situations was kind of a betrayal of her and the characters.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
Okay, sure. I disagree, but all right, those books are just really fucking horny. But on the other side, I think Nora Roberts really laid the groundwork for contemporary romance, which is not my personal favorite. But she really solidified kind of the formula for romance that I think most people are super familiar with. And so I'm just a big fan of hers. One, because of what she has contributed to the genre, but also because we talked about this in our Romance Writers of America episode, but there was a time where the organization RWA was like, well, we don't want the gays to take over. And there was a lot of discourse about whether or not gay romance should be included as romance more broadly. And she's like, this is stupid. Why are we having this conversation?
Well, the thing that I think about, I mean, I guess this goes back to fanfic, is that so many like queer people that I know like found their community and found like their like came to understand their identity and their sexuality like through fandom, through like romance fandom.
Absolutely. I mean, I came of age on Tumblr at a time when it was still really cringe and embarrassing to read fanfic and like admit that you read fanfic. But some of the earliest that I ever read was Law and Order SVU, where Benson and Cabot, the DA, like it was like some of the first gay fanfic I read, or fem slash is what it was called. That was the first time I was like, oh, I might be gay. Because like those didn't exist in traditionally published novels, that kind of interaction. And so, I mean, that went a long way towards helping me figure out my identity.
I remember my oldest kid used to be really into anime fanfic, and there was and all of the like boards on there, and there was always like discussions of shipping characters and which, you know, if people who are listening to this are too old, it's like putting people in a relationship, putting characters into a relationship who aren't in a relationship. So they would always talk about like who they're shipping and like, and I thought that was like fun. That was like a part of interacting with, this is why I'm like surprised about the Anne Rice thing, because I feel like I've never been a part of like fandom communities because I'm not much of like a fan of like popular culture, but I feel like that's how fans are like showing their like love and appreciation is like through the intense investment in the characters that were created and imagining them like living outside of the confines of just the books themselves or the shows or whatever.
I mean, I have a Harry Potter tattoo. I have the Deathly Hallows symbol tattooed on me.
I've seen so many like people on Twitter, like after all the J.K. Rowling stuff come out, be like, oh man, all these tattoos.
I'm not getting rid of my tattoo because no one can beat me up and make me get rid of it. But I'm fully aware of like what association with that particular franchise means. But I think it's also silly to pretend that that wasn't the first fandom that I invested like a lot of time and my own money into. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Even now, I still read Harry Potter fanfic. So I think it says a lot about the universe that she has created, that it continues to endure among people in their 30s and 40s.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because I think that the underlying question is like here is one that's been around forever, which is like, can you separate the art from the artist?
And I think, for me at least, Harry Potter fanfic specifically allows me to continue engaging with those characters and that world in a way that doesn't keep putting money into her pockets and funding her deeply transphobic rhetoric and activism.
Yeah. That's a really interesting point, I think. Yeah. It's almost like a I don't know how to say this, but like taking it back for yourself.
Yeah,
like getting it from the transphobia that is associated with her as a person.
I'm still gonna pirate the movies because they're mine now. Can't take it back. But like fanfic allows me to revisit those characters, I think, in a way that makes me feel better about where I'm investing my time.
Yeah.
And a lot of fanfic writers do go on to traditionally publish things like the Mortal Instruments series, which is a fantasy YA series that I've always really loved. That started as Harry Potter fanfic.
Okay.
And then she rewrote the characters in order to make it an original property. But I don't think that...
Wasn't Twilight fanfic?
Twilight became 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh, that's right. 50 Shades of Grey was a Twilight fanfic.
That's a whole other conversation about what we allow fanfic writers to get away with.
So has it been fun to do the podcast? Have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, I mean, we're 15 episodes in and we do it every week. So that is more than 3 months that we've been at it. Again, 2 people with ADHD being able to be consistent is it's an adventure.
I have a producer for this show because I can't do it by myself.
Well, as soon as we're doing our damnedest to monetize it so that we can hire a producer, because right now I edit and produce all of the episodes. It is, which is another reason we won't be doing a video podcast. It's strictly audio only.
I did Peep Show and we did 100 episodes, and oh my God, that was so much work. Between PJ and I, we like DIY'd that whole thing, and I said I would never do another podcast if I had to do that.
I am currently tooling around with the idea of starting another one, but it's not something that I can't imagine hosting a podcast on my own. So the idea of having to find another person to work with is
so what else do you have going on? Those are two big things, actually. A book and a podcast are two big things.
It is, but I also still work a day job. And the most important part of that for me is that I get to travel a lot. I've been in the job.
Where else have you gotten to go?
So I've been in the job since February. I've been to Nashville, Providence, Rhode Island to go to Brown University, Detroit in Michigan. Next month, I'll be going to Chicago.
There's a lot of travel since February.
It is. So through the fall, be going back to Chicago, Orlando, Houston, back to Nashville, and then over to Phoenix and possibly Anaheim.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot. Do you like traveling?
I love to travel. This is the first time in my adult life that I have not had a pet. And so it's interesting, but also very rewarding to be able to pick up and go on a whim because I'm on a plane every 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like traveling too. I like going to different places. And
yeah,
you feel like you can almost like you're living like some alternate life. That's how I feel when I travel.
It does make me wish a little bit that I had stayed in Miami because the Pittsburgh airport is an experience.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But the more that I go, the less I hate it because I've been to some truly terrible airports this year. Boston Logan is the worst airport I have ever been in. And I don't like Detroit's airport. I don't like any airport where I walk in the front doors and immediately walk into security. I think that's terrible.
Yeah. I have to say, though, that I just flew out of DFW and it's a huge airport, but it was so great because you got like dropped off at your gate, like so specifically, like concourse A, gates 1 through 10 or whatever, and there was a bunch of different places you could get dropped off. And every single one of those places had a like security that you could go through. So you didn't have like, it wasn't all bottlenecked. So it took me like 10 minutes to get through security.
See, and that is ideal. I know that would never happen in Pittsburgh because we're very much a flyover airport, but
yeah, I mean, that's a big airport, so they could do that, but it was so nice. And I didn't expect that. And I was like, because the person who dropped me off, he was like, well, what's your gate? And I was like, I don't know. Why is that? I don't know, and then I looked at it and then I saw I went through security for my gate.
Mm-hmm. That's truly ideal.
Yeah.
I forgot. We just got back from San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Ooh, that's nice. I've never been down to like the islands, the Caribbean islands.
I mean, I can't say too much about San Juan because we went for work and we spent most of the time in a meeting room in the hotel. Yeah. So I can't say that I actually experienced Puerto Rico, but what I did, the food was excellent.
That's nice. Yeah.
And being a Jamaican, I love being in the Caribbean. So
I want to go. I've never been. It's on my list. PJ doesn't okay. PJ is not a traveler. PJ is a person with a lot of anxiety. And so like them travel, which is great because that's not great but I travel a lot for work. So it's great because they don't want to go. And they're like, that's fine. You just go and do your thing and then come back and I'll be at our house. Yeah. And so it works out for us. But like, if I was going to go on a vacation, like they don't love traveling and they don't love like beaches. They're very much a like city East Coast person, even though we're not on the East Coast, but they're like, why would I go sit in the sun? Like, that sounds terrible. So so I need like a girlfriend to go with me to the Caribbean.
Listen, I've got the miles and I've got Hilton Silver status. So you just let me know and we will go.
I would love to because I could not get them to do that, I think. And they don't like being a tourist. Like they have feelings about being a tourist. But I'm like, well, you don't have to act like a tourist. And they're like, oh, those are tourist places. I'm like, okay, all right. So we're not going to the Caribbean.
I mean, I say we. I have made it a point to not discuss my partner online or with other people because they don't like it. But I am going to.
It's like you just like tell our life story everywhere. So whatever.
I am going to Dublin in December for a week because I didn't get to do anything when I turned 30 last year. And so this is my birthday present
that's
to
cool.
myself. And I'm really excited to traipse around. I might not come back. I haven't decided yet, but I'm really excited to traipse
Where are
around
you
the
going?
Irish countryside.
When are you going?
Uh, I don't want to give away an exact date because I don't like to, but
Season?
so December 6th through the 14th. You can
Oh,
cut that
wow.
out.
So maybe it depends on the election if you come back or
And I have a Jamaican passport. So
yeah, that's gonna be really cool. Last time I was in Dublin, it was also in December, and they have very cool like Christmas markets out. It's lovely. I love it there.
I've heard really good things about Ireland. And so we're starting in Dublin, but we're going through the entire Irish countryside that week. So
jealous. That's going to be so cool. That I didn't see, and I would love to see because I heard it's beautiful. I just went into like the one time I went by myself for a conference, and one time I went with my mom, and my mom is Irish. Like her background is Irish. She grew up in the United States, but like it was so funny because my dad's Italian, so I have like the brown eyes, brown hair, but my mom has like really pale skin, super blue eyes, and like black hair. I mean, it's gray now, but it was like dark, and that's unusual here. But we went over to Ireland, and like everybody has like pale skin, blue eyes, dark hair. And she's like, oh my gosh, they're my people. They look just like me. Because you think of like, we have a stereotype that everybody's like light hair, but there's a lot of like dark haired people with blue eyes in Ireland.
yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to go to a place where they also strongly dislike the British.
Yeah. Oh, you know what you would like because you have a similar academic background. There's it's really, really interesting. There's a the Killingham jail is there, and you can go on a tour there, and they have a real life panopticon. It is wild. I'll send you a link, but you have to go check it out because they do a whole tour, and the tour is about how much they hate the British, basically.
That's incredible.
But my mom and I went on it, and it was so interesting because I was like, oh my God, I felt like I was reading Discipline and Punish, like Foucault when he describes it. I was like, I thought that was just an idea. This is real. It's really interesting. And it's worthwhile to go and like walk through there. But I was talking to my mom about it because the British like built that, but for like the Irish people. And I was like, wait, so like they came in and built this to jail the people whose country it is? Yeah. Okay. All right. Is that what we're talking about? Yes.
Yeah, I am. It's something that I think about a lot because I am Jamaican. My mom is Jamaican. And so whenever we go to Jamaica, we make it a point to stay at home, which is not in a tourist area. We do not live in a city. For all of that, it's a relatively middle-class experience in Jamaica, which is very different from a middle-class experience in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to be cognizant of the fact that most of the resorts in Jamaica are not owned by Jamaicans.
Yeah.
They're owned by British and Eastern Asian.
Yeah.
And that money does not stay in or help Jamaica at all. Mm-hmm. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that I don't like having to ration water when I take a shower. And
mm-hmm.
I don't want to wake up covered in mosquito bites. And I don't like that. I don't love that we have to go down the hill to a cook shop or to a store for every meal. Mm-hmm. And so I don't travel home as much as I would like. Yeah. Because in the back of my head, I'm like, I am not having a great time here. Yeah. But I'm so hyper aware of the fact that I don't want to put money in the pockets of the people who are why we have to order barrels of water.
Yeah, right.
Every time we know that we're coming to visit.
Yeah, yeah.
I hate the British.
Yeah. So yes. Go to that jail. It's really interesting. Okay. So I like to end every episode with 3 questions. So what are you reading right now?
Right now, so I'm currently reading a fan fiction I'm reading two things.
Okay.
The first is a fan fiction by Anubis Ankh. It's called Pride of Time. It is a Harry Potter fan fiction. But I'm also reading Invitations by Sam Nascosta, which is the third book in her Girls Weekend series. There are no human characters in the series. It follows three elves and their three orc partners, but there's a lot of allegory to real life issues.
Mm-hmm.
One of the elves, well, all of the elves come from super conservative families, but one, she's in her mid-20s, and I am deeply irritated by her, but she's trying to figure out how to coexist peacefully with her conservative family while also making herself happy in her partnership. So yeah, that is what I am currently reading.
Okay. And what are you listening to?
So I have been listening to Dua Lipa's Radical Optimism. If you follow me on Twitter, you know that I am trying really hard not to become a Dua Lipa stan.
What?
I'm trying not to be a Dua Lipa stan. I never want to get involved in stan culture, but I love her so much. Her most recent album, Radical Optimism, has been on repeat a lot.
Awesome. And what are you excited about?
I'm excited about the book.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited about my job, and I recently enrolled in a home buyer's education program.
Ooh, that's exciting too. You have a lot going on.
I do.
And you're going to Ireland. That's also awesome. This
is also the first time that I've had a stable salary on paper. A distinction matters. So this is the first time where I've been able to seriously consider buying a home, but I've also moved a lot as an adult, and Pittsburgh is the first place that I've really seen myself buying a home. So
yeah, actually, it was interesting. So I was talking to PJ about this the other day. There was recently an article that was saying that right now for new home buyers who've never bought a house, it's probably not a good idea because of the interest rates and blah, blah, blah. And then they said that there's a couple of exceptions, and Pittsburgh was one of the markets where they're like, actually, it still makes sense to buy a house in Pittsburgh.
Well, I know that I don't want to own property. I can't do because of my allergies and post-COVID issues. I am just not capable of doing yard or lawn work. It's never going to work. And I also don't see myself paying to replace a roof. So I know that my options are kind of limited to a condo, an apartment, or a townhouse. Yeah. So that helps a lot.
Yeah. But so that's exciting. And okay, so now where can people find you and your work and your podcast?
Yeah, so I'm not writing a ton right now because all of my writing energy is kind of directed to the book. But I am at Adrie Rising, one word, on every platform. Whether I'm active or not on those platforms depends on the day, but I would say I'm most active on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram, and occasionally TikTok. Yeah, so it's at ADRIERISING on just about every platform.
It was really fun to chat with you.
It was so much fun for me as well.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for joining us for another episode of When We're Not Hustling. I'm your host, Jessie Sage. You can find me on Twitter at sapiotextual or visit my website at jessiesage.com. The show was produced by Emily Foster, and the music is by Benjamin J. Beninati. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at NotHustlingPod. To support the show and get sneak peeks, please go to patreon.com/sapiotextual. For more information about our show and what we do here, please visit our website at nothustling.com. Signing off. Have a great week.